The envelope is sitting on the kitchen table when I walk in. It's cream-colored, heavy stock, the kind they use for legal documents and wedding invitations. My name is typed on the front, not handwritten. That detail matters. My mother is a woman who handwrites everything. Birthday cards. Grocery lists. She once handwrote a 4-page letter to a neighbor about their sprinkler schedule. The fact that my name is typed tells me everything before I even touch the envelope. I'm standing in the kitchen of a house I have never lived in, holding a document that will unravel 3 years of silence. And somewhere in the back of my mind I can still hear Aunt Precious saying what she said to me at the door of the Moreau banquet hall, 47 months ago, in a beige dress that costs more than my first car. You are not part of this family's celebration. If this is your first time here, welcome to Calm Revenge Tales. This channel exists for the people who chose dignity when cruelty would have been easier. If that's you, subscribe. Stay until the end. Justice is slow in this story, but it arrives. My name is Declan Osebansu. I'm a structural engineer. I specialize in load-bearing assessments, the kind of work where you calculate exactly how much weight a thing can hold before it gives way. I've been doing it since I was 26. I'm 34 now. I own a 2-bedroom house in Greensboro, North Carolina, a used Tacoma with 140,000 miles on it, and approximately zero debt. I built all of that without a single dollar from my parents. Not because they didn't have money, because they made it clear, from the time I left for university, that financial help came with a floor plan they'd already drawn. Aunt Precious is my mother's younger sister. She moved in with us when I was 9, after her husband left, and she never quite left either. She slept in the room next to mine for 6 years. She taught me to cook jollof rice and to read a structural diagram, and to say I don't know without shame. When I got my engineering license, she framed the certificate before I did. My parents called her the arrangement. Not to her face, to each other. In the way that people discuss furniture they didn't choose, but can't get rid of. I called her Auntie P. The invitation to my sister Adi's engagement dinner arrived on a Tuesday in March. Cream envelope, handwritten, so I know it came from my mother. The dinner was at my parents' house in Cary, 40 minutes away. I hadn't been there in 14 months. There was a note card inside, separate from the invitation, also handwritten. Declan, we hope you'll come. Adi's would like you there. Please come alone. That phrase, please come alone. Auntie P had been living with me for 11 months by then. After my parents had, as they put it, made some adjustments to the household arrangement. After she'd shown up at my door with a rolling suitcase and a casserole dish she'd carried on the bus and said, I didn't want to be a burden to anyone. I told her she wasn't a burden. She said, you're the only one who's ever said that like you meant it. I called my sister. Adiz is 4 years younger than me and has always been the family's idea of what a child should be. Compliant, decorative, strategically affectionate. I love her. I also know exactly what she is. Can Auntie P come? I asked. There was a pause. The particular kind of pause that means the answer is no, but the person is deciding how to package it. It's just, Mom and Dad think it might be complicated, she said. With Auntie there. You know how it gets. I knew how it got. I knew who made it get that way. I went anyway. For Adiz. I brought a bottle of Bordeaux and left Auntie P watching a nature documentary. She said, tell your sister congratulations from me. She said it quietly, folding a dish towel, not looking up. I wrote it down on a piece of paper in the car. I don't know why. I just didn't want to forget the exact way she said it. The dinner was 22 people in a house that seats 12 comfortably. My mother had rented folding chairs. The table had a floral centerpiece that I would later learn cost $400. Adiz's fiancé, Kofi Cardi, was pleasant and nervous in the way of a man who has correctly assessed his future in-laws and is deciding whether it's too late to reconsider. His mother, Mrs. Cardi, sat across from me. She was a retired school principal from Accra, with the posture of someone who had spent 40 years deciding what was worth her time. My mother made a toast. In the toast, she listed everyone who had helped shape Adiz into the woman she was. She named my father. She named herself. She named 3 relatives I'd met twice. She did not name Auntie Precious. Auntie P had lived in that house for 6 years. She had driven Adiz to swim practice 300 mornings in a row when my parents' schedules were complicated. She had hemmed Adiz's prom dress by hand. Mrs. Carty looked at me across the table. Just looked. She said nothing. But she set down her fork very deliberately, and I noticed. That was the foreshadowing I didn't know I was watching. The wedding was in August. 4 months later, I received a second cream envelope, typed this time. Inside was a single card. The Osei-Bonsu family cordially invites you to celebrate the marriage of Adiz Osei-Bonsu and Kofi Carty. August 14th. The Moreau Banquet Hall, Cary. There was a second card inside. Also typed. Declan. We ask that you attend the wedding as a guest only. Your +1 invitation is not extended. We want this day to be peaceful. I sat with that for a long time. Then I called Adiz. Was this your decision? I asked. Another pause. Declan, you know how things are. I know how things are, I said. Was this your decision? She didn't answer. I went. I wore the gray suit I'd bought for a colleague's funeral. I sat in the 3rd row. The ceremony was beautiful in the way of things that have been planned by people who are very good at surfaces. When the officiant said speak now or forever hold your peace, there was a full 3-second silence, and I held my peace. The reception was in a ballroom that smelled like roses and carpet cleaner. Round tables, white linens, those small glass votives everywhere. I found my seat, table 9 near the back, between 2 cousins I see every few years. Then Auntie Precious walked in. I don't know what she was thinking. She had dressed carefully, a deep green wrap dress, small pearl earrings, hair pinned up. She was holding a gift wrapped in brown paper with a yellow ribbon. She had come to celebrate her niece. My mother saw her from across the room. What happened next took approximately 90 seconds, but I have run it in my mind so many times that it has its own weight. My mother walked across the ballroom floor. She spoke quietly, close to Auntie P's ear. I couldn't hear the words. I didn't need to. I watched Auntie P's hands. They went still. Then they gripped the gift a little tighter. My father appeared. Then one of my uncles. The 3 of them moved as a unit, steering Auntie P toward the door in the way of people who believe that efficiency is the same as dignity. Auntie P turned and looked at me across the room. She said, clearly enough that I heard it from 40 feet away, "It's all right, Declan. Don't make a scene." I stood up. I crossed the room. I walked past a table of people who watched me and said nothing. Past a cousin who opened his mouth, and then closed it again. Past a waiter holding a tray of champagne flutes. I put my hand on my father's arm. "Enough," I said. My father looked at me the way he'd looked at me my entire life, like I was a problem he'd been expecting. "This is not your business, Declan." "She raised your daughters," I said. "That makes it my business." My mother said, "You are embarrassing this family." I looked around the room. 80 people watching. "I'm leaving," I said. "Auntie P, come with me. You don't have to stay somewhere you're not wanted." She said, "I know. I've known for a long time." We walked out together. The door closed behind us. Through the glass, I could see my sister standing frozen at the sweetheart table, her hand over her mouth. I chose to leave. That's what I told myself in the parking lot. I chose it. I did not go back inside. The weeks after the wedding were logistical. Auntie P and I didn't talk much about what happened. We didn't need to. She made tea in the mornings, rooibos, steeped exactly 4 minutes, and left a cup on the counter for me without being asked. I reconfigured my second bedroom into something more permanent. I bought a proper dresser. Moved my drafting desk to the living room. My mother called 11 days after the wedding. She said she hoped I understood the position I had put the family in. I said I understood the position exactly. She said perhaps when things settled, Declan, we could talk about what comes next. I said I'd let her know. My father called 3 weeks later. He said Auntie P had always been difficult, that this was a pattern, that the family had accommodated her for decades and sometimes difficult decisions had to be made. I let him finish. Then I said, She told me you stopped paying her the $200 a month you'd been giving her 3 months ago. He went quiet. I said, that's fine. I've covered it. I hadn't, actually. She'd refused money from me repeatedly. But he didn't know that. The mystery in those months was a leather folder. Auntie P kept it in the drawer of the nightstand in her room. Small, dark brown, slightly worn at the corners. I noticed it when I helped her move in. I noticed it again when I was fixing the nightstand drawer. The hinge had come loose, and she walked in and placed her hand flat on top of the folder before I could see what was inside. Just papers, she said. Okay, I said. I fixed the hinge. I didn't ask again. She was seeing a doctor for a heart condition she'd mentioned only once, in passing, the way she mentioned everything that concerned her. She went on Tuesdays. She took the bus. I offered to drive her every time. She accepted twice in 8 months. One Tuesday in March, 1 year after the engagement dinner, I came home to find her making Contamire stew. The whole house smelled like palm oil and crayfish and something green and alive. She had her reading glasses on, and she was humming something low and tuneless. I sat at the kitchen counter and she didn't say anything for a long time, just cooked. Then she said, I used to make this for your grandfather. He said it tasted like an argument worth having. I laughed. Real, full laughter, the kind I hadn't had in months. That was the most beautiful Tuesday I can remember. If you're watching this and you're in the middle of your own version of this story, the part where you've done the right thing and you're not sure it was worth it, subscribe now, so the rest of this finds you. The folder in the drawer matters. You'll understand why. She died on a Wednesday in June. Quietly, in the way she did everything. I found her in the armchair by the window. The rooibos kettle had clicked off. Her glasses were on the side table. The leather folder was in her lap. I sat with her for a long time before I called anyone. Then I called the number on the business card she'd left on the kitchen counter 3 weeks earlier, weighted down by a river stone she'd kept on the windowsill. I'd noticed the card. I hadn't asked about it. The card belonged to a firm called Weston and Addo, Estate Law. 2 weeks after the funeral, which my parents attended in silence, which Adiz attended in tears, which I attended with the leather folder under my arm, I received a call from a Mr. Weston. He asked if I was Declan Osebansu. He asked if I could come in on Friday. I said yes. The conference room at Weston and Addo had a long table, 8 chairs, and a window that looked onto a parking garage. My parents were already seated when I arrived, which told me they'd been called separately. Adiz and Kofi were there. Mrs. Carty was there, which surprised me. She nodded when I walked in, the same deliberate nod as the dinner. Mr. Weston opened the meeting by placing a single document on the table. He explained that Precious Ama Ose, Auntie P, had been, since 1987, the legal co-owner of a property in Kumasi, Ghana, inherited jointly with her sister. That sister was my mother. He explained that in 2019, Auntie P had quietly transferred her half of that property, valued at current market rate at $412,000, into a trust. He explained who the trust beneficiary was. My mother made a sound like air leaving a tire. My father said, "This is not possible." His hands were flat on the table. Mr. Weston said it was entirely possible, and entirely legal, and had been executed with full documentation across 3 years. He slid a copy of the trust document toward me. I opened the leather folder, the one from the nightstand, the one from her lap, and placed it on the table. Inside were the originals. 3 years of correspondence. Every signature. Every notarized page. She had been carrying the proof of her own estate planning in a worn leather folder in her nightstand drawer, and she had never said a word. My mother stood up. She said the property was hers, that Precious had always been irresponsible, that this was manipulation, that she would contest it. Mr. Weston said she was welcome to retain counsel. My father said nothing. He was looking at the leather folder. His face had gone somewhere private and gray. Adiz was crying. Real tears. I want to be fair, they were real. But she was also looking at Kofi, calculating, and Kofi was looking at Mrs. Carty, who was looking at me. I looked at Mr. Weston. I said, She told me once that the property was the only thing she'd ever owned outright. That no one had helped her get it, and no one could take it away. I paused. She also said that the people who told her she'd never amount to anything were the same people who raised her to know how much she was worth. The room was very quiet. Those are her words, I said. Not mine. The trust was executed within 60 days. My parents retained a lawyer and filed a challenge. The challenge was reviewed by a court and dismissed. The documentation was airtight. Auntie P had spent 3 years making sure it was airtight. The property in Kumasi sold for $419,000. 3 days after the estate proceedings concluded, 3 days, my father called me. He said the wedding had cost them significantly more than anticipated. He said there were outstanding vendor invoices. He said he thought perhaps, as family, we could discuss a loan. The amount was $38,000. I want to be honest about this moment. I sat with it for 2 full days. I thought about Auntie P humming in the kitchen. I thought about the gift in the brown paper with the yellow ribbon that she'd carried on the bus. I thought about what it would mean to say yes, and what it would cost, and who it would cost. I called my father back. I said, I'll forgive the $38,000 you owe Auntie P for the years of unpaid caregiving. Let's call it even. He said that was not the same thing. I said no, it isn't. He did not call again. The estate proceeds went to a foundation I established in her name, the Precious Osei Fund, which provides bursaries for first-generation engineering students in North Carolina and Ghana. The first cohort was 4 students. One of them is studying structural engineering at NC State. She reminds me, in no way I can precisely name, of Auntie P. My sister Adiz sent me a card at Christmas. Just a card, no letter. I keep it on my drafting desk, which is still in the living room where I moved it to give Auntie P more space. I still make the rooibos tea in the mornings. For minutes. I leave a cup on the counter. I don't know why, exactly. Some habits are heavier than the person who gave them to you. Some things you just keep carrying because they're worth the weight. Some things belong to the people who built them, no matter who tries to claim otherwise. A name, a deed, a trust document executed in quiet over 3 years. These things hold. Today, if you have someone in your life who gets moved to the edge of every table they deserve to sit at, call them. Not a text. A call. Today. If this story landed somewhere real for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. I'll see you in the next one.